wanted to take some space to talk about the frequencies, the massive amount of frequencies that are pouring through right now, and how they relate to the mass collective human awakening currently underway. We've hit a new bar, a new level, let's say, a really big new bar as far as frequencies are concerned. It used to be, I talk about the flares, I talk about all kinds of stuff like the coronal mass ejections and coronal holes and the plasma streams and everything coming from the sun, and that would be trigger points and to activate like higher consciousness or contraction, so expansion and contraction. I talk about that a lot in my writings. But it's shifting so big and so fast to push humanity forward that it's just not stopped now. It's just like the frequencies are so high and so elevated that it's just digging in every single place it needs to go inside every single human. If somebody needs to be expanded out of their wildest dreams and see visions of absolute bliss and rainbows and fairies and all the, their future and all these beautiful things to come, then that's what they'll get. If they're meant to get slammed to the floor to see all their programming, all the dysfunction, the ego matrix, the shame, the blame, judgment, guilt, fear, lack, greed, jealousy, which is all the ego matrix. You get slammed to the floor to see all that, to see what you hold inside. So when we talk about density, we're talking about your programming. We're talking about your conditioning. We're talking about the manipulation you hold. We're talking about like the density, the actual density. So density becomes anything that's unconscious and out of alignment with higher consciousness, to make it simple. So like judgment, right? Judgment is toxic to self and to others. So that's density. It becomes density. Every time we judge somebody, it becomes density. It gets stuffed in our body, our energetic body, which I call the energy body. Our job through our awakening, and what an awakening really is to release the ego. What's going on in the world is just a byproduct of our inner world. Many don't realize that the 3D matrix is actually our ego matrix. It's everything about us. It's our whole 3D unconsciousness. It's our separation. It's everything. So through our awakening, what we're actually meant to do is resolve and dissolve everything we've ever taken in since birth, basically, because everything is manipulated. Every single thing that we've been taught in this world has been manipulated. Our job is to wake up, start to feel, because the beginning of awakening is starting to feel, because most people turned off their feelers and turned off everything and just became complacent to life and just trusted everything was the way it was supposed to be and what we were being told was true. And there's no victim story to any of this, and it's not to be disempowered to it, because we actually chose to drop into this reality for this exact purpose. That could be hard for some to take at the beginning because they want to feel like this is all happening to us. And I did at one point too, until I came through and started busting through my ego and all my programming and all my dysfunction, all my beliefs, my identities, all the shame, blame, guilt, judgment, the fears. It's what blocks us from seeing the truth, all these pieces and fragments, which is why the awakening becomes the release of the ego matrix. Where ascension begins after we release the control of the ego matrix, because the ego matrix is 3D. So as people believe 3D is outside, it is, but we actually are holding it inside of us as the human. Each human becomes the dysfunctional 3D matrix because everything they know has been given to them from the matrix from outside themselves. And that can sound normal. But in truth, we're meant to find the journey within ourselves. We're meant to start, as we start to release our ego, as we start to work through the programming, the dysfunction, and all these the stories of victim stories and all these traumas and all the dysfunction and painful memories, we start to release the density. And as we start to do that, we start to actually crack into our DNA. And our DNA is where everything is. That's like the most sacred piece of ourself is the DNA. So imagine we dropped in here to have amnesia, to be unconscious, to drop into 3D, and then to ascend ourselves back to our original state of consciousness. And we knew how it was going to be in this reality. We knew how dysfunctional it was going to be. We knew how manipulated it would be. So we coded the entire process to get out in our DNA. It's pretty powerful. It's pretty wild. And this is a big, interesting piece because in mainstream, nobody talks about the DNA, and then that's the actual portal to quantum consciousness. It's our portal to remembering. That's what remembering. That's why my website's called Remembering Your Power Within, because we're remembering as we release our ego matrix that we took on as children unknowingly. We built our ego. We filled our mind. We allowed the whole outer world to tell us what everything was. So that's what we did. We took everything in, and now we're awakening out of that. Just to make it really simple, we're awakening now out of what we chose to believe. That's an awakening. That's a true awakening. Like everything that's going on in the outside world is just a byproduct. We allowed it all to be the way it is as collective humanity. Now we are it inside because we hold it all as our truth, as the way the world works and all these things, which is all you're going to find out backwards and be given to us like opposite, called opposite land, on purpose. Just to stifle humans from awakening. It's not a big thing. It's why we're here. This is Earth School, and we're just remembering our way home, right? So I just want to take a few minutes to share about the frequencies that are pouring through because they're so big now. And it can get confusing for some because they can feel like their whole world's just crumbling in on them. And it is. It's collapsing. The old world is collapsing, literally. Like the old world on the outside is collapsing, which is the same as our inside world. Our inside world is collapsing as well. They're collapsing together. It's part of the mass collective awakening of humanity. The frequencies that are pouring through and all the alignments and everything that's happening right now are all working together. Everything has its own field, and as the fields interact, it makes things happen. We aren't really taught about the sun and how the sun and the earth are like brother and sister, pushing and pulling each other and giving each other frequencies back and forth to awaken all of us, to push us through everything. The energies that are flying out of the sun are literally pushing into Gaia and awakening humanity in all different ways. It's wild. It's amazing. It's beautiful. But it's very understood in the mainstream because the mainstream is very manipulated, as we're starting to see and as many are starting to open up to. It's been like this for a long time. And it's everything. So it can get pretty deep and interesting. But again, it's not meant to be disempowered or become victim to it because it's why we're here. We're here to come out of it all. We're here to ascend back to our highest state of consciousness, which we descended from. So we're just walking ourselves back home. But to do that, we've actually got to start to tune into our DNA through the resolving and dissolving process. Others may, when I speak of resolving, dissolving, it can confuse people a little bit. Because what I'm speaking about is resolving the energy, and we're taking responsibility for all the choices we made. We're taking responsibility for all the energetics that we created, for all the unconscious creations. We're taking responsibility for actually holding the energy, the stories, the victim stories. We're realizing that everything's happening for us, not to us. And there's two completely different ways to look at things. Nothing's ever happening to us. It's always happening for us. And I like to use the to us, for us thing because it's very easy to play with. There's no accidents. There's no random. Those are just words given to humanity to keep us suppressed and keep us from our awakening. If we knew how energy flowed and how we create experiences and how when we speak unconsciously or when we believe things unconsciously, we're magnetizing experiences back into our life. As a growth experience is what I call a growth experience. So we can grow from it. So we can see where our unconsciousness is through a physical experience with someone else. But most times humans get caught up in the emotion and feel and start blaming outside of them and say, well, this person's being mean. But in truth, if they're triggering you, your trigger's yours. Our triggers are ours. They're nobody else's. Nobody's coming in and purposely triggering you to be mean to you. They might seem like that. But the way I see it is just higher selves interacting with higher selves and making the humans do things so they have experiences. And because we weren't taught how this all works, everybody just gets emotional and blames everybody else and gets judgment just flies everywhere. Everybody's just blaming everyone, judging, guilting, not owning up to what's inside of them and us. We got conditioned and programmed so deeply to just blame outside of ourselves everything. Blame everything. When in truth, it's all ours. Your reality is everything that's inside of you, magnetizing experiences into your life. So your bad days aren't really bad days. You can choose to perceive them as bad days. That's what everybody else does. Or we can step it up a little bit and be like, why is this actually happening for me? Why is this experience happening for me right now? This person's triggering me. It's activating triggers inside of me and I'm getting upset. Well, that's your moment. That's a choice point right there. That's what I call the choice point. That's the moment where you actually can stop and assess and say, wait. This is mine, this trigger. I'm only being triggered because I hold dysfunctional energy inside. I hold density, or else I wouldn't be triggered. I'd just be able to say, hey, well, good for you. Thanks, that's great. Appreciate your comments, whatever. But we get triggered because we get upset. And that becomes a bit of a victim story. And we're not really ever questioning, like, why is this happening for me? No, I don't know anybody who says, oh, why is this happening for me? Rather than, oh, this is happening to me. Like, everything's happening to everyone, and that's just a victim story. I throw out the word victim because everybody's victim, and they don't even realize. I was the biggest victim to my whole reality, and I didn't realize until I started coming through my ego. And even really, I realized what victim was. It's not a judgment. We're all victim to a lot of things. And when you start to see that the whole world's manipulated and we blame the whole world for our lives, you realize how messed up that becomes. Because your life is just a reflection. Everything that's coming into your field, every single experience, conversation, everything is being magnetized. There's no accidents and no random. We can play with that till the cows come home. This is a quantum reality. Energy flows by when something comes out of alignment, it wants to be back in alignment. That's where experiences come into our life. We've got karmic, I'll use karmic. So, other existences we're working with, and we've got some karmic energy or debt to deal with. That's not going to be the same as the mind feels it is, where you're trying to look back into your past life and fix this story from some point in time. Because that's not how quantum works. Quantum is all simultaneously. So we're bringing karma into this life from other existences, and it's not going to be as cut and dry as the mind likes to make it be. So it's going to come out through massive, traumatic experiences, big traumatic experiences. The ones that don't make any sense. The more we work through it, you're going to start to realize this is energy carried over, or it's something we created in this life. That's what everything is in our whole life. It's a combination of karmic energy, other existences, and bringing everything back into a whole. Bring everything back into alignment by releasing, resolving, and dissolving all the dysfunction, all the density, which is a lot. Awakening becomes a completely different process than what's being shared in mainstream. And that's why I really wanted to start to share videos and get people share a bigger understanding, a higher understanding as experienced through me. I'm not just speaking through regurgitation. I'm not speaking through books. Everything I'm speaking from comes through my DNA. I've never taken courses. I've never done anything. I didn't actually go into the spiritual or metaphysical or esoteric world at all. My journey was to not do that. So I got guided away from all that stuff. I worked on becoming a shaman for a while, and then I realized that wasn't my path, and I just pulled away. But that was as far as I went into anything. And it allowed me to see everything from such a bigger picture that we don't actually need those things. They're all just pieces to help us get through the journey. But it's sold to humanity out in the mainstream like that's the way through. And that can get very interesting because, when you get into the healing journey, everybody's on a healing journey. It's really beautiful. But then you get to this place where you realize that healing is only the beginning of the journey, where most feel it's like the end. The mainstream likes to feel like 5D is enlightenment and it's like the be all end all of everything. And that's where we're trying to go. When really 5D is just the beginning of the journey, really. That's the beginning of the ascension, right? 5D begins as we release the ego. That's when we become embodied into a 5D frequency of embodiment. It's not, dimensions aren't physical spaces. They're physical embodiments. They're frequencies we embody. Different levels of consciousness. So we're not going to be in a different world when we get to the 12th dimension. That being said, when people feel that we're only meant to get to the 5th dimension, there's actually another 7 dimensions of physical embodiment to work through. And that's your ascension of your consciousness and physical body ascension, which finishes around 8D. And then you move into 12D. You just keep on integrating and activating and opening up templates, and you get into your 12D templates, and then you're just pulling all that in and you're bringing that back to humanity. But I can get into that in a whole other bunch of videos. But just to give a quick synopsis, most are trying to get to 5D, and 5D is just the beginning. So you've got 7 more dimensions to work through once you get to 5th dimension. It's not all Skittles and rainbows at all. So we've got a lot of people playing in 4D embodiment, not being able to get into 5D embodiment because they're not releasing it and doing the ego work. I'm not saying they don't want to. Many don't, and many are avoiding, which is part of it. But when the information's not out there, or people don't want to receive it because they don't want to believe there's a bigger or higher journey, then you can get really caught looping in the ego. And then when you look out there and you see the mainstream belief, or just, go look at the dictionary version of what ego is, or even the spiritual, esoteric, metaphysic version of ego, it's not going to be what I'm going to share right now. It's going to be a very limited version of what I'm going to share. And I share at the beginning of the video. It's shame, blame, guilt, judgment, fear, chaos, lack, control, and so many more. But those are the main attributes. Those are the main things, the main fractals, I guess, compartments of the ego. The ego matrix, right? It's an ego matrix. All those things I just described run our lives. Everybody's judging, shaming, blaming, guilting either themselves or someone else. Everybody's in lack to something, whether it be love or anything. It can be anything. Money, it could be anything. Lack becomes everything, really. Lack becomes one of the most self-deprecating things we do. It becomes the judgment, it becomes the fear, it becomes everything. Lack becomes self-love deficit. It's messing with our self-worth, self-respect. So we have to release the ego to get to 5D. Meanwhile, there's a lot out there that believe they're in 5D simply because they feel they push their ego away, but don't know what the ego is. So it's a very interesting thing. Pretending to be nice on the surface, and then when we get home, we're a different person. That's not releasing the ego. I'm not saying everybody's doing that, but there's a lot of that going on out there. It's not releasing the ego. The ego work takes years, like a real true awakening. From the point of going all in, where your ego really starts to take you through, which I call pre-ego, and you start to understand what judgment is and fear, and like that they are part of the ego matrix. From when you go all in there, it still takes years to get through your awakening. So as many feel they're through their awakening and they're already ascending, they haven't even finished their awakening yet. And that's no judgment. I just work with a lot of people that believe they're a lot higher up in a journey than they are, and they're caught looping in ego, not knowing what it is. So it's important that we share these things. And if it triggers you, then take a look at your journey, and just take a look at your beliefs, and take a look at the difference from what I'm sharing as an embodied soul that's already ascended and fully ascended my consciousness and my physical body. And then compare to the journey that you're on, right? Because healing is a word that we drop once we release the ego. We drop the word healing because we realize we're not healing from anything, because it's all something we created for ourselves. So there's no open wound, the way I see it. Like, there's no open wound. We're like, I asked the other day in a conscious group what people felt it meant to heal, and I got so many different versions. Not one of them got to the highest truth of what it really is, to what I was just sharing, resolving and dissolving and taking responsibility for our creations, for all the big traumas, for all the painful moments, all the things that we really feel happened to us that could have been really horrible. If we're still blaming any of those things, feeling they happened to us, then we're victim to that. And being victim is ego. Victim is a big part of the ego matrix. That's something to look at. There's zero judgment. It's about understanding the journey we're on. There's a much bigger journey. And if you haven't tapped into your DNA, which happens through light body activation, which happens when we start coming into 5D, then top end of 4D into 5D as we're releasing the ego, then things are really confusing. And there's 2 different journeys being had. So I just see a lot of soul stuck in the fluffy rainbows and Skittles awesomeness, like wow, and being so sacred and beautiful. But that's only like one little piece of the entire whole journey. That's just like one of the smallest pieces. And at that point, it starts to become a little bit fake, because when we go home or we're getting triggered and we're all, emotional and stuff like that, realize that the emotions are part of the ego too, right? Sad, mad, angry. Most people are just reacting with emotions. And when you realize that emotions are the ego, they're a big part of the ego matrix and they need to be cleared to release the ego, you start to realize that a lot of people that feel their way ahead of where they aren't. Because it's very easy to see that. So it's easy to feel. It's easy to see the emotions pouring out. It's easy to feel someone be triggered, because I can feel everything. I am the quantum field now, so I can feel every single thing within every human without my ego in a way. I can just feel it for what it is, because energy doesn't lie. It just is what it is. It shows you everything. And that's what oneness is. Oneness is becoming a living embodiment of everything is you, and you are everything. Nothing is hidden from anyone anymore. Nobody can hide their energy. I don't see your whole life stories. I just feel your energy, and it shows me everything while you're talking. And then I give that back as guidance and show you where it's a little bit out of whack. And then I guide you right back to the highest place. So I wanted to take some time here to just share some space, to share a higher perspective of awakening that I've already worked through. So it's not like I'm just picking this off a page and saying, oh, this is a whole new journey. There are those of us that have been on a higher path for a while. One of the reasons you won't see me or that I have a massive following right now is because I did my journey much differently than other people did. I was guided to do it backwards to the mainstream version of everything. So as I was working on becoming a shaman, I realized that nothing was resonating with me. The more I, tried to get into spirituality or deeper into shamanism, it felt like it was pushing me away. Not the people, just energetically. Everything that I was learning was pushing me away. It didn't feel right, didn't feel good. Not that it's wrong or anything like that. It was just showing me like to pull away. So I did. The more I pulled away, the more I went inside. Because everyone that I felt was a teacher wasn't able to answer the questions that I really wanted to know. Like, what is truly, what is an awakening? What is ascension? What does it mean to ascend? And I've written articles on this now because I have ascended. So I've actually written it from experiencing it, right? Where if you ask anyone else out there what these things mean, and I recommend asking those two things, you'll get a very different answer than you will from somebody who's like me, who's already ascended, as you will from somebody who hasn't, and maybe feel that they have or feel they know what it is. But you can't know what it is until you experience it. This is a journey that can't just be shared as written jargon from someone who hasn't experienced it. Awakening and ascension is all about experience. It's about getting slammed to the floor through all of your creations, all your most painful stuff and all your traumas and everything you hold inside, all your programming, conditioning, getting contracted and expanded consistently like an accordion, like for years and years and years and years and years. The journey from going all in and truly releasing the ego is a good 10 years. Like I know people that have, and in reference to this, I know people that have been awakening for 30, almost 40 years, but still haven't gone through the ego process yet because they got stuck in with money, making money and building a following and doing all these things that mainstream kind of says we should do. You get into you do your healing is the way I see it is you do your healing and then everybody feels they're meant to be a healer. And that's a whole other ball game in itself. Because when you really understand what healing is, and then you understand that there's something so much bigger, there's a process that's so much bigger than that, you start to realize that things are pretty messed up the way that they're being done out there, and it's causing some confusion, and it's causing people to be stuck in loops and things like that. Because life's so manipulated, humans take everything from outside. They can't trust inside, but that's where everything comes from, right? So as I'm saying, like the more I pulled away from spirituality, the more I went inside. The more I went inside, the more I asked questions. The more I asked questions, the more I turned off my mind, the more I connected with my higher self. Next thing you know, I became my higher self. I've never channeled. I've never done any of that. My higher self was just, my guidance was just kind of like, no. Skip all that. You're going to go straight inside and you're going to connect with yourself. And I found it awkward. I found it weird. But I did it. I just kept doing it and doing it and doing it. And this went over years. I became more sacred than I could possibly imagine for myself and my reality and whatever that meant for me. I pulled away from everything. I assessed everything in my life and why and how I was doing it. I wanted to look at everything and before I spoke and become the living embodiment of what I was sharing. And the only way to do that was to experience it and to release and resolve and dissolve all my ego, my dysfunction, and all that stuff, which is just massive. And so I did. But that's why you won't see me with a massive following, because I didn't go into healer mode where I said I was healing people. Because I realized that you can't heal someone. You can't heal someone else from their own choices. You can't physically go into someone's Akash and say, oh, when you were 5, you made a pretty bad choice and that caused this massive trauma. So let me go in and just take responsibility for your choices for you. You can't do that. But that's actually what resolving and dissolving is, or what people might want to say healing is. That's like the higher version of healing. Healing is to me is looking at things on the surface and starting to walk into them, which is beautiful because most people are running from everything. It's the hardest thing in the whole world to look at your past or your trauma or anything like that, because it's held like it just happened. And that's because that's how it works in quantum. Past, present, and future are all happening right now. That's why it feels so intense. So healing becomes, to me, opening up and allowing yourself to look and face it. But I don't know anyone who's done the healing journey and is still healing or believes they're still healing that has taken responsibility for the creation of what they feel happened to them. See what I mean? Does that make sense? So it becomes an interesting journey. And if you want to know, if you want to go deeper, much deeper into what I'm sharing, you don't have to believe. I'm not saying believe me or anything. I'm saying feel it. I'm saying like feel what I'm talking about. And the way to do that is I wrote and created a workshop, an awakening workshop, and it's free. It's on my website. It's free. It's in the courses section. And I put a bunch of different articles that I've written together and activations that share what a true conscious awakening is and what it means to ascend, like to consciously ascend, not spiritually ascend, but consciously ascend. Consciousness and spirituality are two different things. Spirituality are belief systems. Consciousness is a choice. It's a daily choice. Every moment, every second, every breath. It's choosing to be conscious of every single thing in your reality, which is how we come through. We want to be conscious. Being spiritual it comes with belief systems and all kinds of different stuff. And spirituality actually isn't taking anyone through their full awakening, right? Because it's belief systems. So we end up having to get rid of some of those belief systems and our beliefs of how they actually truly work, right? We've got most people are looking to the past like I did. I looked to the past feeling the past was going to fix the future or all the answers were in the past for the future. It doesn't work like that. The old modalities, none of that works anymore. Since 2012 when the Ascension portal opened, the whole game changed. And that's where the confusion comes in. Because I was always looking backwards too. I was looking to the past. I was looking at my past lives. I was looking for all these things. When in truth, I was meant to just start to resolve and dissolve the stuff I created in this life. And as I did that, I crack into my DNA and activate my DNA in all my cells and my atoms and all through my body, just like everyone else. We all are, our DNA, each one of our DNA is filled. It's our Akash. It's filled with everything. It's our universal consciousness. It's our portal to universal consciousness. We go through the higher heart and we connect into the DNA. It's beautiful. But you can't just connect into your DNA. You don't just do it. You have to start to release the dysfunction and the density. Like truly release it by resolving and dissolving and aligning it and clearing it. It's different clearing than when we talk about clearing in spirituality or in mainstream. That's different. Clearing in that sense is kind of just pushing the emotions away and letting them go away and coming back to your heart. Clearing in my world is actually like resolving, dissolving, taking responsibility and clearing it from your reality. So when your ego tries to test you with it again, you just smile and you're like, oh, that was a beautiful gift of an experience for me, but I don't hold it anymore. There's nothing that keeps me bound to some 3D reality with anything anymore. I fully understand why I created it, how I created it, and I took responsibility. Much different process, right? But humans don't like to take responsibility for anything, so this is a big part of it too. You share that there's a bigger journey, and then the human feels, but there's a silver bullet over here. Maybe if I go to the ceremony, I'll get healed. The thing is, the ceremony's not healing you. And I don't want to take that away from you. You can believe whatever you want. And as you come through your journey, you'll start to see how this works. And if you really want to integrate this and take this in, it'll start to open up within you and start to show you the higher truth if you ask. If you ask inside and you close your eyes, close the mind off, and you just want to see the higher truths and remember, your higher self will start to show you. But you got to start to listen. You got to learn how to feel and listen, because this journey becomes feeling. Channeling is like the mind and kind of reaching outside of yourself. Where becoming your higher self is you are your higher self. You become your higher self. You embody your higher self. And that's what we're doing when we're releasing our ego. We're pulling our higher self towards us, and we're like meeting in the middle. And then we get tested like crazy, and like back and forth, like to get tested with all of the ego stuff you already worked through. And then you become into mastery phase. And the more you master yourself, the more you're opening up your DNA and opening up your blueprint, and you're remembering. It's all about remembering. Like usually I say the word remember and people feel like they get all tingly inside, because everything's a remembering. I'm just activating your DNA right now. So while we were told there's junk in our DNA, it's the complete opposite. Our DNA is the most powerful thing in our existence. It's the place we're meant to go. But nobody wants to go inside. We've been feared to go inside and talk to ourselves and be with ourselves and actually work through things and take responsibility for creating them. Because it's way easier to become the victim to everything than to want to deal with it all, because it's a lot of work. And humans have been conditioned to be lazy when it comes to doing inner work and doing things that actually matter. I'm not saying lazy with doing garden work and stuff like that. Like they trained us to be really good slaves, so we do that kind of productive work. But this isn't about productive work. This is about inner work. It's a much different experience. So I encourage you to check out the free workshop I did on my website, because if anything, it'll just open up a whole whack of pieces of what I'm speaking about. I did a piece on the journey of the path of the wounded healer as well. And I really explain everything I'm talking about in much more detail. I don't want to say explain, but share. I really open it up into much more detail. So I encourage you to take a look at that. I'm going to start doing a lot more videos so that people can connect with me, because I realize I do a lot of community calls every month with our group. We've got a beautiful soul family, soul light group that I've got a membership area and stuff like that. So that's for people that really want to dive in and do the bigger work. But I've got tons of information on my website, tons of free stuff, tons and tons and tons to get you to start to feel where I'm sharing from and allow it to activate within you, and you can start to feel it tingle inside. I'm not regurgitating anything, right? So this is all streaming through my DNA from my highest consciousness, quantum consciousness. So, I encourage you to just read some and see how they feel for you. Tons of free guidance to help you work through anything on there. Tons. I always balance out like a ton of gifted free guidance with paid guidance, because we all have to live too. That's why I write courses and books, workshops. I've got a powerful guidebook just finished, and it's like next level. I recommend checking that out too. It's all about where you are in your journey and the work you want to put into yourself. If we don't want to put the work in and go all in on our journey and still want to stay attached to the material world and money and cars and girls or guys or all that stuff, we're never going to go into the higher part of the journey, which means releasing all of that. There's a minimalist phase. There's all kinds of phases. Some feel they've gone through the minimalist phase, but then I, take someone through the journey and they're like, I didn't even touch that phase yet. And then I'm like, right, this is minimalist phase. It's not just about giving your stuff away and living with nothing. That's just one little tiny piece of it. Everything's just so much bigger, right? Just remember, the mainstream is meant to manipulate humanity. As a final word, it's meant to manipulate humanity. Everything's messy out there. Everybody's following each other. And then you got a group of people that are doing their own thing. As the more we awaken, the more we want to do our own thing. We feel this pull inside to make us start to feel everything. Can't avoid it anymore. So you'll see that Your traumas and your emotions will start to be like a lot more heightened than they ever have been. Your old stuff will be coming up like crazy. And it's not to let's say, piss you off. It's to show you what you hold inside. So when our traumas come up and everything's coming up from our past and these painful memories and all this stuff, I just want to share that it's not coming up to make anybody upset or to trigger. It's coming up to say, hey, I'm stuck inside. It's time to let me go. It's time to work on me and truly work on resolving, dissolving, and taking responsibility for why it's happening in your life. And I've written lots of posts on that too. So there's everything I'm talking about is tons of free stuff on my website to find. In that, it's just important that we are assessing ourselves at all times and checking in on our energy. Are we blaming people? Are we shaming other people? Or are we going to take a moment and say, like, why is this actually happening for me? Why would this experience be happening in my life? If energy flows and magnetizes and we're just creating experiences and bringing them back into our life so that we can grow, which is what I call a growth experience, then why wouldn't we be asking the questions of why is this happening in my life without the victim story? Like, not like, why is this happening to me, but why is this happening for me? If I could just impart one simple statement, make a shift in your life to why is this happening for me instead of why is this happening to me? And you'll start to see a different understanding of what's going on in your life. Remember, there's no accidents and no random. Every single thing happening in your life is something you're magnetizing to yourself. Always. It's never different than that. It's just the human that makes it that way. So they don't have to take responsibility. It's just a big loop. Anyways, I could go on for days and weeks and hours and months and I'm just stream of consciousness. So we'll get back and I'll do another video. And about, like I said, I got tons of writings. I'll be putting out more writings all the time. I'm always flowing the codes that are coming through me. I'm always just putting them out in articles and translating them into human language and getting it out there. So I love you. I honor you. So appreciative and grateful for everything you do for yourself and your journey. Enjoy the process. Enjoy the frequencies pouring through. They are so pure and beautiful. That's the thing. I'll just finish. They're pure, right? So if you look at all the frequencies that are coming in, they're so ultra pure. So for somebody like me, it's just like ultra bliss and pure joy. That being said, when the purity frequencies and codes come through, they bust inside and they go for the density. That's their job. They go straight for the density. So take a look at what's coming up. So that's why it's coming up. It's coming up because it says it wants to go. It's time to go. It's your choice when you want to start to really let it go. There's higher processes out here that I've got out, and others of us have got higher processes. It's just not going to be found in the mainstream. Mainstream doesn't want any part of it. So, yeah, just enjoy your journey and really just, if you want to go all in, go all in. But that means 24/7. That means everything. And if you don't, it's going to start to get painful if you don't really want to go all in on your journey. Because we're now in that crunch point where it's the mass collective awakening of humanity and nothing will stop it. So these frequencies are just going to keep getting more intense and more intense and more intense, bigger and bigger and bigger and more pure to pull everyone through their stuff. And it will start to force people through their stuff. So the more you avoid, the more uncomfortable it's going to get. We'll just share that. So you want to be loving this. You want to be loving the journey. You want to be loving of everything that you've been through in your life. You want to find it as a gift. You want to see the opportunities to shift and grow. That's what this is all about. If you're upset and emotional, it's your ego. Just check in and be like, okay, well, why am I so angry? What's going on? If this is all happening for me, then I'm just fighting it. Why don't I look into it and love it? It's awkward at first. You got to start to really understand that everything is just in your life because you're bringing it there. That's one of the biggest pieces to take in the beginning. Anyways, I love you. I'll see you soon.